This is a discussion about paragraphs. And in a previous lecture, we talked about paragraphs in a general sense, an overall sense, and we used this website that you see on the screen here. And we talked about the first part of this, the parts of a paragraph, and talked about the purposes of each part of the paragraph. But more importantly, perhaps we talked about the overall purpose of paragraphs in writing. And I think I mentioned that many student papers that I see, not all of them, and not the majority of them, but more than you would think, don't really seem to reflect an understanding of paragraphs and what they're for. And I'll see student papers that are one paragraph long for the entire 2-3 pages of an essay, for example, or maybe at best, 2 or 3 paragraphs. But when you see something that is a page-long paragraph that is part of a writing project, it indicates that student or the writer, whoever that might be, really doesn't understand the functioning of a paragraph. So that was the purpose of our first lecture, to talk about how it functions, what it does, and what its parts are, and to describe its utility to the process of informing the reader and helping the writer organize his or her thinking. Today we're going to talk about how to write a good paragraph. That's the second part of this website. And we have several hints over here. We're going to just go to the first one here, pre-writing your paragraph. What is the pre-writing stage? It's a point at which before you actually sit down at the keyboard and start typing and constructing your essay or your piece of writing, a time when you sit and think a little bit about this. Think carefully, you organize your ideas for your paragraph before you begin writing. So you're thinking a little bit about what's going to be my topic sentence, what am I going to use to support that? And you can see the 6 steps here kind of reflect that process, and they're pretty self-evident when you think about it, but they're the kinds of things that are easy to know about, but very often are neglected in practice, and they can really help you, especially when you're stuck, when you don't quite know where you're going. Come back to this idea of thinking through what you're about to do. So in step 1, you think carefully about what you're going to write. Okay, why am I doing this? What's the reader going to get out of this? Why is it important? And so forth. And you ask yourself these questions as you kind of consider your writing project from a larger perspective than diving right in and starting your paragraph. So think about those questions that you're going to raise in your essay or your paragraph, and try to come up with some ideas and answer those questions, and then open your notebook, step 2 here, and write out your answers to those questions. It can really help you to think ahead and to construct a much better paragraph or essay if you sit down and do a little pre-writing here. Just write them down, jot them down. They don't have to be grammatical. They don't have to be sentences even. Just write down what the answers are to the questions you've raised. And then collect some facts. Go on the web and do a little surfing or open a book, or go to a newspaper or a magazine, or whatever source you think would be best to kind of tackle your subject, and just learn a little bit. I mean, this pre-writing stage can take you an hour, perhaps half an hour maybe if you're quicker at it, but at least take the time to do that and consider some of the facts that answer your questions here. So you collect those facts that are related to your essay topic, and then write down your own ideas. Number 4, ask yourself, what do I want to say? There are a lot of things you could say. There are a lot of ways you could go. You could be in a persuasive situation where you're trying to change somebody's mind about something or persuade them of an opinion that they might not have thought about. Or you might just be presenting information. But ask yourself, what's the purpose of this? What am I going to be trying to do here, and what do I want the reader to take away from this? And then find the main point of your paragraph or essay. This is really important. Once you've found the main point, it prevents you from going off on tangents that are distracting to the reader and that cloud your thinking when you're trying to organize what it is you want to say. So if you think ahead and think about this process that you've gone through of coming up with general topics and questions and so forth, what are the answers to your questions, and then spend a minute to really narrow it down and nail down what it is you're going to talk about. And then number 6 in the pre-writing process is to organize your facts and ideas in a way that develops your main idea. You can construct an outline at this point, or just kind of a simple structure of topics. You can even do a diagram that will tell you what facts and ideas relate to other ones or relate to your main idea. So if you think through this process before you even start writing, you'll be way ahead. You don't have to spend a lot of time at it, but if you just go through these 6 steps, you'll be way ahead of the curve in terms of writing a good paragraph or a good essay. So let's look at the actual writing steps here. These are, again, pretty self-evident, but again, things that are often ignored and can be very helpful to you. So what are the 5 writing steps that come into the writing stage when you turn your ideas into sentences, as it says up here? Well, open your notebook or your word processor, whatever you're going to start writing on. Write the topic sentence. So you come up with a pretty good idea of your central idea and translate that into a sentence that is your topic sentence, and put in your supporting sentences and your closing sentence. So that's basically your paragraph, the 3 parts of your paragraph. So knock out a paragraph, write a draft. Don't have to write it all that carefully at this point, but just get it down on paper. Then write clear sentences and simple sentences to express your meaning. So go back over what you've written and see if you are being clear, if you've got a lot of extra words, if you've got unnecessary adjectives in there, if you've got long, complicated sentences that are your idea of how a scholarly piece ought to be written. Get rid of all that. Simplify. Tell yourself the story in as simple a way as you can. And then focus on the main idea of your paragraph. Make sure that all of your supporting sentences relate to that main idea. And your closing sentences kind of draws things together, but again, relates to the main idea. And then if you have kind of a moment to think about what you've written, reading it over, and aren't quite satisfied that you've said it as well, you might start poking around in a dictionary to see if you can find some other words that might help you express your ideas. It's just a discipline, any step of which will help you write better paragraphs. You don't have to do this with every paragraph, but when you're stuck, when you're getting started, it's a good idea to go through this process. So let's go to another one, the editing of paragraphs. Well, editing of paragraphs was sort of what we started doing in the writing of the paragraph, but we weren't as thorough about it. So when we get to the editing stage, we want to make sure we get the mistakes out of there. We want to make sure we have extraneous information out of there. So check your spelling, check your grammar. Bad grammar, bad spelling, really unnecessary. There's endless number of sources out there that you can use to check all that. And there's no excuse for turning in an essay that has spelling errors or grammar errors at all. And if you do, you distract the reader. In the case of academic writing, you get a lower grade. And in general, it's just a process that does not help your essay at all to have random errors. Even one error in a sentence, a disagreement between subject and verb, or pronoun disagreement or something like that, stops the reader. So look the stuff up. Go over it. Read your essay again. Read it over again and again. One of the things that I do that I think is helpful is I print it out after I put it on the screen. I really think that a lot of writing could be improved if you just printed it out and read it. For some reason, reading it on the screen does not bring out all of the problems that you might have not seen, that you might have included but not seen while you were writing this. But when you print it out and read it, and then go to correct the mistakes you find on the screen as you're reading the draft that you've printed out, it really works pretty well. At least it works for me. Make sure you have a subject in each sentence, the usual things. Do they agree? I just mentioned that. Verb tenses, are they consistent, parallel? Make sure that each sentence makes sense. If there's something in there that makes no sense, rewrite it. Sometimes you just kind of get bogged down in words and you need to rethink and simplify that sentence. For style and organization, make sure that you have a topic sentence and that your topic sentence is clearly stating what that paragraph is going to be about. Make sure your supporting sentences focus on the main idea. Very obvious things, but things that if you check them off as you go, you'll do a better job of writing a paragraph. You have a closing sentence. All your sentences focus on the main idea, and if they don't, fix them or take them out. And see if your paragraph is interesting. Have you really said anything that is going to make a reader sit up and take notice, support your point? Can you choose better words? Can you arrange your sentences? Can you use stylistic considerations like parallelism and that kind of thing to make your paragraph more powerful? Think through these things. You may not be able to come up with everything at once, but the more you go over it, the more you will find that you can improve it by just going through a checklist like this or one of your own that you have used before that gets you a good paragraph. And then we talk about publishing the paragraphs, and that's basically just making your copy, making your paper as a final product that you're going to turn in to your instructor, in this case post online if it's a paper for this course. You might try to get some feedback before you do that from your teacher. You can go to the Writing Center and get feedback. You have classmates, you have roommates, friends, parents. A lot of people can react to and give you comments that might help your paragraphs and essays be stronger before you go ahead and hand them in or post them on the website. And so you ask for tips on how to improve your writing from other people. Don't be afraid to do this. It's a good thing. People are usually willing to do it, and they're not going to be brutally critical of what you've written. They'll probably make helpful suggestions. And always, I've found that when you do this kind of editing process and submitting it to others, you come up with a much better piece of writing. So those are some tips for writing your paragraph, and that'll bring us to the end of this particular lecture.